If you've ever thought, I wish Excel would just decide this for me, that's exactly what if formulas do. Today we're going to take a couple simple monthly household spreadsheets and turn everyday decisions into if formulas. And once you understand how Excel will branch between true and false, the structure becomes very clear. Let's set sail. This first spreadsheet is a simple budget versus actual spending spreadsheet. And we're going to ask the question, did we spend more than we planned? We're going to first just look at, is C2 bigger than B2? For groceries, the answer is true. We spent more on groceries than we budgeted for the month. And we're going to copy this down. And you can see for gas, we did not spend more than we budgeted, so the answer is false. The next thing we want to do is display something a little bit more meaningful than just true or false, and we're going to use the if statement to do that. Let's take a look at what I just did in a little bit more detail. I started with the formula if, and this first part, C2 greater than B2, is exactly the same as what I entered in column D. And that is our test to decide which path we're going to take. For this row, C2 is larger than B2. And so the second part of this, where I have quote over budget, quote, that is the path that Excel will take if the value from C2 greater than B2 is true. And the second part is telling Excel to display quote within budget, quote, if the value is false. I have quotes around those because it is returning text depending on which path it's taking. I just want to point out that you do not need this column D. This was just for demonstration purposes, just to show you what that formula returned, that it just returned true or false. It's completely self-contained inside the if, so these tests are not needed for this sheet, and normally we don't put those in. I just wanted to show you what that logical test, the C2 greater than B2, actually returns, true or false. And that is all that an if statement actually is. I want to show you a slightly more complex example. This is a list of the amount of electricity used for the months January through June, and I want to categorize them as being high, medium, or low. So I'm going to enter an if function for that. Now let's take a deeper look at this function. The beginning part of this is very similar to the first example. We are saying if B2 is greater than or equal, that's the greater than equal 1000, then our true value, if that's true, if it's greater than or equal to 1000, the usage was high. If it is not greater than or equal to 1000, it does this next part. And this next part is another if function. So it looks inside the if function and makes another true false determination. If B2 is greater than or equal to 600, then classify it as medium. And if it's not greater than or equal to 600, we are going to classify it as low. And I have two closing parentheses at the end, and the reason for that is the first one that's red is for this inside if statement, and the second one is for the first if statement. So let's take a look at this second row where the usage is 580. It looks and it asks if B3 is greater than or equal to 1000. It is not, so it skips high and it looks at the false value, and then asks if B3 is greater than or equal to 600. It is not, so it doesn't look at the medium and it looks at the false value, which makes it low. And you can see that's exactly what it returns. And we'll just look at one of the medium. Again, if B4 is greater than or equal to 1000, it's not, so we skip the high and we move to the false value for the outside if statement. Then it moves to the second if statement and it says if B4 is greater than or equal to 600, which is true, it chooses medium. And you can see that is the result for this if function on this row. And you're not limited to just doing two. You could continue to put if statements inside of if statements as many times as you need to. I also want to show you that the order matters. If our first part of our if statement asks if B2 is greater than or equal to 600, false value from that asks if it's greater than or equal to 1000. It's going to classify this as medium because it's first looking at B2 greater than or equal to 600, and that's true, so it returns medium and it's done. It never looks at this second part. It found that B2 greater than or equal to 600 is true, and so it only returns the true value and does not look at this false value for the outside if statement. So it never sees this second part, and so it never sees B2 greater than or equal to 1000. None of these will get classified as high. I will copy them down quick for you so you see that. None of them get classified as high because it will never see that second inside if statement when usage is greater than or equal to 600. Undo both of those and return them the way they should be. So every if function has 3 parts. The first part is a question that's going to be either true or false. And the second part is what Excel should do if the value is true. And the third part is what Excel should do if the value is false. Once you've done a few, you'll begin to see how it works and it'll become a lot easier. Until next time, I wish you smooth sailing.